What really happens is that suddenly there is a demand for them and the duty goes up. The manufacturers start assembling here and there is a huge price difference. This is one way of persuading them to start assembling here.
I think your mic, yeah.
So this is one way of persuading them to start assembling here. So,
so that's a good move, import duty.
Yeah, in the sense it happens always. Second is...
but isn't that old school thinking, import substitution and raise import duties and makes it more inefficient?
We have not reached that level.
Okay.
The point is that we all go step by step.
Okay.
The other industry has not been touched. Only the SUVs have been touched domestically, and I think this is all because of the government's policy of not having done anything with the fuel pricing for 2 years. In 2010, the difference was petrol and diesel was only 9 rupees. It went up to 30. Huge demand. Let's look at it. SUVs and cars, vehicles between 5 lakhs and 7 lakhs grew by 30%. But the smaller...
We got General Motors here as well.
Yeah, I think it's...
Let's get an additional comment on...
So I'll just finish. The SUV part of it is because of the diesel thing. And the small cars did not sell because of petrol.
I thought that SUVs, he's going to be very unpopular in Parliament because the bigger the MP you are, the bigger the car you have, right? Generally, they all go around in SUVs.
Yeah, but and they don't even know what the price is. They want bigger.
What was your reaction?
Well, this is spoken by someone who's not making SUVs. So I'd say it's a mixed bag. I think the investment incentives are positive from the point of view of from a manufacturing perspective, and there certainly is a trickle-down benefit, which we'll see on the consumer side. What I was disappointed by is the lack of recognition of the doldrums the industry is in right now. So while we be thankful that the duties were relatively selective and really only on certain very high-end and specific sectors, what I'm missing, though, is a recognition that the industry really is in very poor shape right now. And so...
But are you going to invest?
I think anyone who wants to grow in India has to invest.
So you're going to take advantage of this?
Well, I won't make any commitments right now, but certainly, that's going to drive investment across a wide variety of manufacturing sectors, not just ours. But what I'm missing, though, is really more of the consumer side to drive. What are we going to do to drive consumer demand, which is what we really need right now. So what we have to be hopeful for is that the trickle-down aspect of that will bring us more momentum. So.
Yeah, I'm actually quite disappointed in one reason, because we keep talking about manufacturing industry and how we are going to grow the manufacturing industry, and the whole automobile industry is really the kind of a locomotive for this industry. If you look at the technological advances in manufacturing, you look at the management of manufacturing, everything tends to come out of the automobile industry. It's also a huge job creator, top to bottom, whether it's low-skill jobs, high-skill jobs, management, scientists, everything. So if we keep taxing this industry, I think it's the price of a car is so high.
The hybrid side, are we going to see some hybrids coming in?
Well, I hope some hybrids will come in. Still the prices are going to be high. I think the 0% duty will definitely help. I hope that will help in fueling demand.
Well, I think we're always looking at opportunities to leverage our technology around the world, and I think that's an incentive, and I think we certainly have to look at that. But in terms of igniting the industry, it's really only a small aspect of that. So
this cutter looks...
let me talk about the automobiles. This is the most liberalized industry in the country today. Not today, but from 1993. 100% FDI allowed, imports allowed, technology allowed, royalty being given. There is no restraint. You compare it to China. You can only have a joint venture. Approval for new models is to be taken. All sorts of restrictions are there. So automobile industry, as far as the policies are concerned, has a maximum freedom.
Right.
Automobile industry depends upon the growth in the country.
Right.
So if the economy grows, automobile industry will grow.
Okay, just let's get a political perspective of all this.
Mr. R.C. Bhargav from Maruti is also
here. One more.
Just if you could finish with the auto space. Sorry.
Yeah, good idea.
Sir, go ahead. Your disappointments and things that you're happy with.
I'm not disappointed at all, because I think the budget has done a good balancing act. It has done nothing directly to either harm or hurt us. So why should I be disappointed?
Okay, and what are you happy about, especially for the auto sector?
There is nothing directly for the auto sector which really should make me happy or unhappy. We are continuing, and I think stability is something which is good for us. So when there is stability of policies, then it's a matter to be happy about.
All right, thank you so much.
And when any budget doesn't do something negative, you're happy.
Quite right.
So Shekhar, the politics behind this whole thing, of course you're the most economic savvy journalist, perhaps more economic savvy than most economists.
As long as you don't ask me about politics.
So overall your perspective on this budget, is it balancing act, managed, will it have any impact?
I think politically the most important thing is that it is not a political budget and it is not a pre-election budget, which is what everybody feared.
Right.
Because that budget would have been suspended. Now, we don't know if there's a fudge in the figures, although I think it's unlikely that there will be large fudge in the figures. The big fudge in the figures was last year, when 40,000 crores of credit was taken for spectrum revenue, of which only 1,900 crores has come. And if you ask from where did that figure come,
that's his fault.
Stories will come out that Kapil Sibal was arm twisted into writing a letter to the finance ministry that 40,000 crores will come. That was an institutionalized, organized, orchestrated fudge by conspiracy.
And no arm twisting this time.
Well, we'll have to check, but looks unlikely because these are the things. Because
Arun Shourie disagrees with you. He is very skeptical.
No. Arun Shourie has always found out when there is a fudge in the budget. So if there is one, he will find out. But what I'm saying is today ratings agencies are watching you. Today all the smart people are watching you. It's very difficult to carry out a fudge and have people miss it. Because nobody missed it the last time.
Right.
Also only 40,000 allocated for fuel subsidies when you knew fully well.
And the Indian Express will catch you anyway.
Well, somebody will catch it for us.
That's a plug.
Somebody will catch it. I'll take it. But having said that, I think the more important thing that sometimes we miss out, and it may not be very good news for TV channels, which ride out on budget live telecasts, that in a reforming economy, one indication that an economy slowly, haltingly is genuinely reforming or is the path of reform is the declining importance of the budget. Because budget is no longer a statement of economic policies now. Budget is in a genuinely reformed economy, budget is a statement of accounts. It's not a statement of policies, it's not a statement of intent, because a budget can announce 5 lakh crores in infrastructure. Tomorrow some nutcase in the environment ministry can block it. A budget can give any amount of incentives for housing construction. Again, a crook in the environment ministry can pass a notification. Any building which is defined as a high-rise must be abutted by a 30-meter wide road and must be within 2 kilometers of a fire station. Try and find both in the city of Bombay, which has 90% of India's high-rises. So this way, you can construct an ATM, right? So a budget is just a statement of intent. I think the important things to look at the budgets, in the budgets now, particularly as we have consistent tax policy, is to look at these big figures of deficit, current account deficit, all kinds of deficit, and the quality of accounting.
Yeah.
Because if our budgeting, NK is sitting here, he is a past master at some of this, doing creative writing in budgets, also catching it now. He's an MP from the opposition. If you start seeing more clean accounts in your budgets and a better emphasis on controlling expenditure and controlling deficits, I think that's good enough.
Very true.
All right, Kiran Mazumdar-Shaw, chairperson of Biocon, is also with us from Bangalore. But before we go across to her, a quick word on education and healthcare. Let's start with healthcare. Dr. Naresh Trehan is here with us. Your thoughts, sir?
Well, there's very little to cheer about because we had great expectations of getting a boost for the health sector. But he's done a balancing act in the sense that the National Rural Health Mission got 24% boost. That is a very good thing to happen. But the overall health ministry budget has only gone up by 3,000 crores, which really is not even a drop of what we need to do. But one of the things that we have here in the healthcare sector is that it is probably the most inefficient functioning sector at the rural level. So if we are walking a tightrope in budgetary constraints, I think if we were to put in checks and balances into making the money going down the line much more effective and efficient, I think we could have made up for this tightrope walk that we have to do this time.
Education space, and there Mr. Rakesh Bharti Mittal also has a point to make.
Yeah, I was very happy to see that there was a higher allocation of 7% for education, because we kept hearing that could go down, including the midday meal scheme. And more importantly, for technology incubation, any funding from the corporates will be seen as CSR. I think is a huge positive for me.
Right.
One concern which I always have, and for the last 3 years I've been pushing this, that the NGOs, foundations and societies who are providing either free education or just at very minimal cost, they need to be given the government schemes on uniform books and midday meals, which ultimately is a job which is being done for the state. One positive which I also picked up when Mr. Chidambaram talked about 3,000 kilometers of roads to initiate that project in the first 6 months, I only wish that all policy decisions which have been taken in the recent past in the budget and to follow are implemented with the same rigor. I think that is where we will see investments coming into the sector.
All right, I think Shekhar has a point to make before
I just have a fact that was just conveyed to me by my colleagues, that this budget takes credit for 55,800 crores for disinvestment, which is 30,000 crores more than last year. So it may be optimistic, or it may be realistic, maybe it will be achieved.
Sale of technology, sale of spectrum also.
Well, not that
any
much.
kind of selling.
Yes, but 55,800 crores for disinvestment. So if that might be the key to that target of 4.8.
All right, education as corporate social responsibility, funding of education to be included as part of CSR is in fact a proposal that Kiran Mazumdar-Shaw, chairperson of Biocon, had talked about with us before the budget. Are you happy, Mrs. Shaw, with that?
Yeah, I think, to begin with, I'm quite, pleased with this budget, because it is both prudent and populist. But as you say, I think there are some positive signals coming from the finance minister. I think the CSR aspect of what corporates can do in terms of investing in development is very important. And like I said, investing in not just the educational sector, but also in skill building, in startups, in the MSME sector. I think just to give a fillip to this manufacturing and services sector, I think is very important. Apart from that, I think there's been a very important signal given by the finance minister in terms of addressing our current account deficit, where he clearly said that foreign direct investment and FII is imperative to bridge this $75 billion gap that we are staring at. So I think these are important aspects, but I think you really need to now see that we implement on what we intend to do, because like Shekhar said, the budget is only an intent. How we implement it is really going to make us strong or make us sustainable. So I think that's what I really want to see, because I really want to see how we focus on deregulation, disinvestment. Now we need to see more granularity in this whole disinvestment intention. I agree with Naina that trying to capitalize the state-run public sector banks is not really the way forward. I really think we needed to have looked at disinvesting or reducing our investment levels, which are at 70%, rather than spending this 14,000 crores that is being proposed.
All right, so implementation.
So these are some of my off-the-cuff remarks.
Right. Also a quick reaction from you on the one announcement that's clearly trending the most, and that is clearly the announcement to set up the first Women's PSU Bank. Your thoughts on that one?
Well, obviously it's a welcome step. It really certainly helps with the sentiments that are there today. I think, in fact, women have been fairly high on the FM's budget agenda, because a lot of things have been rolled out for women in particular. And this by the women, for the women kind of a bank is certainly something which is welcome. But, as Naina said, it's a very small part of the budget, but certainly a welcome move.
All right, last question before we let you go. Anything in this budget which you think will help us achieve the growth rates of 6.1 to 6.7%, clearly ambitious target that has been set out for the next financial year?
Well, I really haven't seen the enabling aspects of getting the manufacturing sector kick-started, apart from the 15% investment allowance, which I think should have been much higher, because I'm really worried that, you are not going to see the kind of capital inflows that are required by just having a 15% investment allowance. I think it needs to be much larger, because I think the cost of capital in India and the poor infrastructure that we have to contend with is not going to drive investment into manufacturing and the kind of expansion activities that we need to see. Moreover, I would have liked to have seen much bolder kind of announcement on infrastructure development. Okay, there are some policies that have been announced, but I think we should have done much more than that. So let's see if we can really drive 6% growth. But having said that, at least there's nothing negative that has come out from this budget. I would have liked to have seen a lot more for the healthcare sector. I think the pharma sector itself is a big sector which has been neglected at this budget, because we are really grappling with huge regulatory issues, price control issues, and there is no respite.
Dr. Roy, India ain't just surprised, there are no negative surprises.
Well, I think the fact that everybody expects terrible things from every budget, there's not something disastrous. What's the CII's first reactions?
Our first reaction has been that it's a very positive budget, and
but that you say every year.
Not really. I think it's not really. I mean, this year it could have been a very a political budget, and we did not see a political budget. Yes. I think that's very important, and very true.
We resisted making it totally political. What Shekhar was making earlier.
Absolutely. And second, we wanted to see growth indicators in the budget, and we were talking about the budget has to be growth oriented. We see a focus on growth. The finance minister is very prudently, I must say, really focused on one of the strong recommendations that we were making was to bring investments back. I think he's talked about investment allowance, which is very important. His focus on infrastructure is consistent with the type of growth that we were expecting. So I think he's really focused on that. He's also gone across the spectrum. If you really look at the industry, sector by sector, especially also he's gone to the small and medium enterprises, encouraging them. So it's been a good spectrum in the budget as one sees, and real focus on growth and investments, which is extremely important. And another important factor is that he has also talked about controlling the fiscal, and I think that's clearly there is a roadmap for that, which is very important.
Positive points actually. Yeah. And you clearly also believe this 4.8%. NK, 55,000 crores in raising revenues, non-tax revenues, say by disinvestment. Is that actually going to ever happen? Or that just brings you to 4.8%. You've got to get below 5 psychologically.
No, well, I think, Pranay, generally I think this is a very credible attempt on the part of the finance minister, given all the constraints and given the fact that the exogenous circumstances continue to be somewhat dubious. I think this is a very credible attempt in trying to spur the engines of growth, to put growth in front of the other considerations of either populism or austerity. And I would say that the underpinning of the budget is really based on several things which he hopes he will be able to achieve. He hopes he'll be able to introduce the DTC during this budget session itself and get the enactment of the DTC. He believes that the GST negotiations with Sushil Modi have reached a penultimate point. Sushil Modi has confirmed to me that indeed it has. And
that's important. You would know that, yes.
Is sanguine that given the fact that now he has made provisions for compensation to the states on the CST, there is a reasonable chance that the GST constitutional amendment will happen.
That's big news.
That fact on insurance and pension, there is a fair amount of agreement now even within the NDA. In fact, on pension, the NDA had already agreed much earlier, but the Congress didn't want to put the bill because they had difficulties from the party in West Bengal. So on insurance, on pension, on DTC, on GST, if there is a forward movement in the course of the 4 or 5 months, I think then the assumptions of Mr. Chidambaram are quite credible.
Can I just make one point, please? On the disinvestment, negotiations have fairly gone far with Balco, with the Sterling Balco and Hindustan Zinc itself. So if those two themselves, it's a large block, the government holds around 49%. If those two go by themselves, you get a fairly large sum of money, I would say 30-40,000 crore right there across those two companies. Yes. 30-40,000. I mean, you have to work there, I'm saying huge sums of money, because these firms are now worth a fortune. When they were sold, they were not, they're now privatized, worth a fortune.
All right, a lot of focus on women, a lot of focus on creating jobs, because that will be the critical bit. And Chris Gopalakrishnan of Infosys, who's also President Designate of CII, is also with us now. Mr. Gopalakrishnan, as far as creating jobs, focusing on youth, do you think enough has been done in this budget towards that?
Yes, I believe so. And why do I believe so? One of the most important recommendations or suggestions that have come through the budget is the 2% CSR can be allocated to incubators. I think that is very, very important to spur creation of new companies, investment into innovation. He also talked about listing of SMEs without IPO. He talked about SMEs still getting the credit for 2 years when they cross the limit. So there are many things that are targeted toward SMEs, and SMEs are the engines for growth. So I think, there is a focus on that. Of course, there is focus on skills and skill building. So that again will be helpful in creating the jobs. And of course, then the other things on infrastructure, things on agriculture and agro products, I think all of those are targeted towards job creation.
I think we are joined by the Congress spokesperson Abhishek Manu Singhvi, and we've got Shekhar who's dying to ask him a question. Shekhar.